Fuel?
If you have the courage.
Oh, this is better than I'd planned. I shall not shirk an affair of honor.
You hit me. Picard never hit me. I'm not Picard.
A popular theory, often touted by the original series and the Next Generation fans alike, is to argue that the entity known as Trelane, retired, in the original series episode The Squire of Gothos, is a Q. There are two specific counterpoints brought up when this begins to be discussed, and we'll discuss that a little bit later. But for now, let's analyze Trelane and the Q for a moment.
We, meaning I and others, have, to state the matter briefly, perfected a system by which matter can be transferred to energy and back to matter again.
Trelane is a seemingly all-powerful entity with the ability to manipulate matter at will. He can instantly transport himself and others to, well, it appears anywhere that he wishes. He has an unhealthy obsession with humanity, but this is coupled with a very basic and naive understanding of their nature. From the dialogue, it appears that Trelane has also been viewing past historical events of humanity, not necessarily their present. He only has knowledge of what has occurred roughly in the last 900 years, or so at least he claims. He is flamboyant, aloof, and seems to care very little for the welfare of the crew of the Enterprise.
No. The same old story is the one we're meeting now. Self-righteous life forms who are eager not to learn, but to prosecute, to judge anything they don't understand or can't tolerate.
The Q, initially at least, are seemingly all-powerful entities with the ability to manipulate matter at will. They can transport themselves and others to, well, it appears anywhere they wish. They seem to have somewhat of an unhealthy obsession with humanity and, to a lesser degree, Starfleet. From dialogue, they know humanity's past and seem to focus on that solely. Or, at least that's what they claim. The Q puts humanity on trial, one of which that never really ends. Who the Q are and how they work is based on the era and situation they're in, but they go from ultra serious to rather, well, I've stated it before, aloof. The theory that these two are one and the same is extremely popular due to the amazing similarities between the two characters and entities. It actually goes further than they both are powerful as well. Certainly throughout the Star Trek series, the various crews have met entities of amazing power. However, Trelane and Q are unique in the way they address the crews of the Starfleet vessels, their methodology, and their ultimate opinion of the human species.
Oh, how marvelous! Devastating! Why, this could kill millions.
You recognize this? The stun setting?
Knowing humans as thou dost, Captain, wouldst thou be captured helpless by them?
Another thing to consider is the way that the Q interact with humanity in Starfleet is generally with kid gloves. They present a reality to those they're interacting with that those people will understand. We know that who the Q really are, their actual forms and environment, isn't something that is comprehensible to neither the 23rd nor the 24th century humanoids. So it's quite possible that Trelane is doing the same thing. Indeed, we see him create entire rooms and decorations with this in mind. Of all of the other entities seen in the original series, Trelane is the only one that matches up to the Q almost one for one. However, let's address the two criticisms that I've seen in regards to why Trelane can't be a Q. The first is that he uses technology. There are two reasons this fails. The second one I'll address with the second criticism. But the main point is, how do we know that the Q aren't utilizing technology themselves? How do we know that they are doing all of this through biological means? Every Q that has been encountered has had to use some form of trigger, from a snap to waving of the fingers. This could be an activation of some kind. Indeed, we see similar actions done between a Q and Trelane.
Here's the end of me.
This could trigger whatever event the entity wishes to happen. And for those who would argue that Trelane had to be in front of the mirror, well, after Kirk destroys the device initially, Trelane is still able to disappear without its operation, and able to continue doing everything he had done without a mirror. He was using a more advanced, indestructible device. Not to mention that he was able to transport aboard the Enterprise and move an entire planet without the mirror being there. The Q very well could be using this more advanced technology, and we just don't see it. Honestly, after analyzing this specific episode, I'm more ingrained with the camp that believes the Q are technological giants, not biological ones. The other argument is that Trelane had parents. At least that's what is inferred by the end. The Q apparently don't have kids, or didn't for a long time. There are a few points that would explain this away, but we'll first go over the argument that addresses both this criticism and the last one. And this is what I was hinting at before. It is quite possible that Trelane had parents, and was a Q, just like Trelane was using technology, and was a Q. But even though those two things are true, the Q of TNG don't use technology, and they don't initially have parents. The reason is, we could be observing an earlier form of Q, a precursor to the Q. After all, the original series is roughly 100 years before the Next Generation, if not longer, and we are looking at an earlier age of Starfleet with Kirk that is not as advanced. So, why are the Q any different? In fact, it's even talked about in Star Trek Voyager.
At the beginning of the new era, life as a Q was a constant dialogue of discovery and issues and humor from all over the universe.
It is possible that this new age was something that occurred after Trelane. Now, many will state that there is dialogue indicating that Q has been in a state of decay for thousands of years, if not more. And that could also be true. The Q don't have to operate on a linear timeline, though. The prophets certainly don't. So it could be possible that Trelane was an earlier form of Q, and that the Q have existed for an incalculable amount of time. After all, everything could be timey-wimey.
Yeah, people don't understand time. It's not what you think it is. People assume that time is a strict progression of cause to effect, but actually, from a non-linear, non-subjective viewpoint, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
Also, and this can't be understated, are we sure that Trelane had parents? From a desert to the Civil War, we know that the Q present their continuum in varying ways. Given how Kirk may or may not be able to understand the being before him, this could have been done so that he would accept and not question what had occurred. Indeed, it's true, this could have been a budding Q, not a child, but someone who just got out of the continuum. He's being allowed by the elders to go out into the universe, and when he causes too much mischief, he's brought back. Indeed, it might make sense that this Q doesn't know the reality that he presides over when you consider that he creates fire with no heat and makes food with no taste. He was still learning about the universe outside of the continuum. When they decided to bring him back, they just portrayed it as a mother and father so that Kirk would understand, and given Kirk's...
Yes, dipping little girls' curls in inkwells, stealing apples from the neighbors' trees, tying cans on... Forgive me, Mr. Spock. I should have known better.
Juvenile way of looking at things prevent him from getting upset and wanting an adult to stand for the crimes that were committed. Though it might not be that. It could just be the case that this is the first time the Q decided to investigate humanity. They found them interesting, but not yet ready to destroy them all. So they sent out one of their own. A trickster was placed in the midst to see how they would react. In fact, could this be John Delancey's Q? Just he hasn't taken his ultimate form yet. It's just a thought. This wouldn't be the first time the Q meddle in the affairs of humanity, after all. One of the things I know I do a lot is creating rumors and theories about the background of Star Trek itself. From Section 31 causing Praxis's destruction to Starfleet being a humans-only club. Sometimes I think the theories have credibility. Other times I don't, I just like the conversation. But this specific theory, Trelane being a Q, I honestly think there's enough evidence here to show that he was a part of the continuum. Hell, I almost believe that he's John Delancey, we're just seeing him in a different form. Whether he was a Q before the New Age or after is debatable, but definitely a Q. In the end, these are my thoughts though. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next Lore Reloaded.